The kitchen of the Sterling estate was less a place of warmth and more a surgical theater. Stainless steel appliances gleamed under harsh, recessed lighting. The floor, a checkerboard of black and white marble, was polished to a mirror finish that seemed to repel dust by sheer force of will. It was 11:14 p.m. on a rainy Tuesday in November. The house should have been asleep. But in the corner, near the massive Sub-Zero refrigerator, a shadow moved. Lucy Ramirez, 12 years old and small for her age, held her breath. She wore a faded gray t-shirt that was 2 sizes too big and pajama pants that had been hemmed with duct tape. Her dark hair was pulled back in a messy bun, revealing a neck thin enough to circle with one hand. She reached for the handle of the refrigerator. Her fingers trembled. "Don't squeak," she prayed. "Please don't squeak." She pulled. The seal broke with a soft, sucking sound that felt like a gunshot in the silent room. Lucy froze. She waited. 10 seconds. 20. Nothing but the hum of the compressor, and the distant drum of rain against the windows. She exhaled a shaky breath and reached inside. Her eyes scanned the shelves, bypassing the expensive wines and the imported cheeses. She was looking for the leftovers. There, on the bottom shelf, a plastic container holding half a roasted chicken from dinner. And next to it, a small bowl of mashed potatoes. She grabbed them, her movements quick and practiced, like a squirrel stealing a nut. She shoved the containers into her canvas tote bag, covering them with a dirty rag she used for cleaning. She was about to close the door when she heard it. Click-clack. Click-clack. Heels on marble. Fast, purposeful. Mrs. Thorne, the housekeeper. Panic, cold and sharp, flooded Lucy's chest. She shoved the refrigerator door shut, wincing at the thud. She spun around, looking for a place to hide. But the kitchen was an open-concept nightmare. There was nowhere to go. The footsteps stopped at the archway. Well, a voice said, dripping with icy satisfaction. "What do we have here?" Mrs. Agatha Thorne stood in the doorway. She was a tall woman, severe in her black uniform, with gray hair pulled back so tight it pulled her eyes into a permanent squint. She held a ring of keys in one hand and a flashlight in the other. She flicked the beam on, blinding Lucy. I was just," Lucy stammered, shielding her eyes. "Stealing?" Mrs. Thorne finished for her. She walked into the room, her heels echoing like hammer strikes. "Thieving little rat. I knew it. I've been watching the inventory." She reached Lucy and grabbed the canvas bag. Lucy held on instinctively. "Let go," Mrs. Thorne barked. She yanked the bag. Lucy, malnourished and weak, stumbled forward. The bag ripped open. The plastic containers fell. The lid of the mashed potatoes popped off. White fluff splattered across the pristine black marble. The chicken skidded under the island. "Look at this mess!" Mrs. Thorne shrieked. She grabbed Lucy by the ear, twisting hard. "You ungrateful little wretch. We give you a roof over your head, and this is how you repay us? Stealing food from Mr. Sterling's own table?" "It was leftovers," Lucy cried, tears springing to her eyes. "It was going in the trash." "It belongs to the house," Mrs. Thorne shouted, dragging Lucy toward the center of the room. "And you are nothing but a servant. A charity case. You don't take unless you are given." She shoved Lucy. Lucy fell to her knees, her hands landing in the smeared potatoes. "Clean it up," Mrs. Thorne ordered, looming over her. "With your tongue if you have to. And then get out. You're fired. Tonight." "No, please," Lucy begged, looking up. "My mom. She needs the medicine. I can't lose this job. Please, Mrs. Thorne. Your mother is a drain on this family, just like you," Mrs. Thorne sneered. She raised her hand as if to strike. And then, the impossible happened. The heavy oak front door, 3 rooms away, slammed shut. Boom. The sound vibrated through the floorboards. Mrs. Thorne froze, her hand still raised in the air. Her eyes widened in genuine terror. "He's not supposed to be back until Thursday," she whispered. Footsteps. Heavy, tired footsteps. Not the click of heels, but the thud of expensive leather loafers. Thomas Sterling appeared in the doorway. He was soaking wet. His trench coat was dripping onto the floor. His silver hair was plastered to his forehead. He held a briefcase in one hand and a travel mug in the other. He looked exhausted, a man carrying the weight of $1 billion empire. He looked at the spilled food. He looked at Mrs. Thorne, hand raised. He looked at Lucy on her knees, crying in the mashed potatoes. The silence that followed was heavier than the storm outside. "What?" Thomas Sterling asked. His voice low and dangerous. "Is going on in my kitchen?" We often think we know who holds the power in a room. Mrs. Thorne thought she was the queen of this castle. She forgot about the king. If you've ever been caught in a situation you couldn't explain, or if you've ever wished for a savior to walk through the door, hit that subscribe button. You do not want to miss what happens next. To understand the fear in Lucy's eyes, we have to go back. Back to before the spilled potatoes. Back to the day the silence began. 6 months earlier. Sophia Ramirez, Lucy's mother, was the head maid of the Sterling estate. She was a woman of warmth and song, always humming while she dusted the library or polished the silver. Thomas Sterling, a widower for 10 years, rarely spoke to the staff. He was a ghost in his own home, moving from his office to his bedroom, his mind always on mergers and acquisitions. But he liked Sophia. He liked that she placed fresh lavender on his pillow. He liked that she knew how he took his coffee black, 2 sugars, without him asking. But then came the accident. It was a Tuesday. Sophia was polishing the grand staircase. The one with the marble steps that spiraled up 3 floors. Lucy was at school. Thomas was in London. The only people in the house were Sophia, Mrs. Thorne, then just the assistant housekeeper, and Victoria Sterling, Thomas's new, much younger wife. Victoria was difficult. She was beautiful, yes. Blonde, poised, always dressed in silk. But her eyes were cold. She treated the staff like furniture. That afternoon, a scream echoed through the mansion. Then a sickening thud. Then silence. When the paramedics arrived, they found Sophia at the bottom of the stairs. Her leg was shattered. Her spine was damaged. She slipped, Mrs. Thorne told the police, wringing her hands. "I told her not to use that polish. It's too slippery." Victoria stood at the top of the stairs, sipping a green smoothie. "Tragic," she said. "Clumsy woman." Sophia survived, but she never walked again. She was confined to a small room in the servants' quarters, a damp basement apartment that smelled of mold. Thomas Sterling paid for the initial surgery, then promptly forgot about it. He was busy. Victoria handled the household accounts. "We'll take care of her," Victoria told Thomas. "She can stay in the basement. Her daughter can work off the debt." And so Lucy became the maid. At 12 years old, she woke up at 5 a.m. to start the laundry. She scrubbed floors until her knees bled. She lived in fear of Mrs. Thorne, who had been promoted to head housekeeper by Victoria. And every night, she stole food. Because Victoria had cut their food allowance to 0. "They are mooches," Victoria told Mrs. Thorne. "If they want to eat, let them buy it. I'm not running a charity." So Lucy stole. A piece of bread here. An apple there. Scraps from the trash. She brought it all to Sophia, who lay in bed, pale and withering away. "Eat, Mama," Lucy would whisper, feeding her mother spoon by spoon. "You eat." "Me more," Sophia would say, pushing the spoon away. "You are growing." "I ate at school," Lucy would lie. Her stomach would growl, betraying her. This was their life. A secret war for survival, fought in the shadows of a billionaire's mansion. Poverty isn't just about lack of money. It's about lack of voice. Sophia and Lucy were screaming for help, but no one could hear them over the sound of Thomas Sterling's private jet. Have you ever felt invisible? Like your pain didn't matter to the world? Leave a in the comments. Back in the kitchen. The present moment. Thomas Sterling stepped into the room. He didn't shout. He didn't run. He walked slowly, his wet shoes making a squelching sound. Mrs. Thorne lowered her hand. She tried to smile, but it looked like a grimace. Mr. Sterling. You're early. We didn't expect you until Thursday. Obviously, Thomas said. He looked at Lucy. She was still on her knees shaking. Mashed potatoes were smeared on her gray t-shirt. Get up, Thomas said to Lucy. Lucy flinched. She scrambled back, hitting the island. I'm sorry, sir. I'm sorry. I'll clean it up. Please don't call the police. Thomas frowned. Police? For spilled potatoes? She was stealing, sir. Mrs. Thorne interjected quickly, stepping between Thomas and Lucy. Caught her red-handed. Stealing food from your refrigerator. I was just disciplining her. Thomas looked at the spilled food. A half-eaten chicken carcass. A small scoop of potatoes. That? Thomas asked. That was dinner from 2 nights ago. I remember because I didn't eat it. It's the principle, sir, Mrs. Thorne insisted. Theft is theft. Thomas walked past her. He knelt down in front of Lucy. He didn't care about his $5,000 suit pants touching the dirty floor. What is your name? He asked gently. Lucy looked up. Her eyes were wide. Dark pools of terror. Lucy, sir. Sophia's daughter. Sophia? Thomas's face softened. The lady with the lavender? Where is she? Where is she? Where? I haven't seen her in months. Mrs. Thorne stiffened. She moved on, sir. Found another job. Lucy here stayed behind to finish up some loose ends. Lucy gasped. Liar. The word escaped her lips before she could stop it. Mrs. Thorne turned purple. You little... Thomas held up a hand. Let her speak. Lucy looked at Thomas. She saw something in his eyes. Not the cold indifference she expected, but curiosity. Maybe even kindness. My mom didn't move, Lucy whispered. She's in the basement. She can't walk. Since the accident. Accident. Thomas looked confused. Victoria told me she recovered. She told me she went back to her family in Mexico. No, sir, Lucy cried. She's here. She's sick. Mrs. Thorne won't let us call a doctor. She says we owe you money. Thomas stood up slowly. He looked at Mrs. Thorne. The air in the kitchen dropped 10 degrees. Is this true, Agatha? Mrs. Thorne swallowed hard. Sir, the girl is imaginative. You know how children are. Sophia is resting. She has free room and board. We are very generous. Thomas looked at the canvas bag. He saw the dirty rag. He saw the desperation. Show me, Thomas said. Sir, you're tired. Mrs. Thorne tried to block him. Let me make you some tea. We can sort this out in the morning. Show me now. Lies have a way of crumbling when faced with direct questions. Mrs. Thorne is trying to build a dam against a tidal wave. Thomas Sterling is waking up from his slumber. Are you ready to see what's in the basement? The door to the servants' quarters was behind the pantry. It was usually locked. Mrs. Thorne fumbled with her keys. Her hands were shaking so bad she dropped them. Thomas picked them up. He unlocked the door himself. The smell hit him first. Damp. Mold sickness. He walked down the narrow wooden stairs. Lucy followed him, clutching her torn bag. Mrs. Thorne trailed behind, silent as a shadow. They reached the bottom. A long concrete hallway with a single flickering bulb. Which room? Thomas asked. Lucy pointed to the last door on the left. Thomas opened it. The room was tiny. Maybe 10 by 10 feet. No windows. Just a ventilation grate near the ceiling. Sophia lay on a twin mattress pushed against the wall. She was skeletal. Her skin was gray. Her leg, the one that had broken, was twisted at an odd angle under the thin blanket. Mama? Lucy whispered, running to her side. I brought dinner. She pulled the salvaged chicken from her bag. It was dusty now. Sophia opened her eyes. They were sunken. but they still held a spark of light. Lucy? Is that you? It's me, Mama. Thomas stood in the doorway. He felt like he had been punched in the gut. This woman, this skeleton, was the vibrant, singing maid who used to bring him coffee? Sophia? Thomas choked out. Sophia squinted. Mr. Sterling? Oh, sir. I'm sorry. I'm not decent. Please don't look. She tried to pull the blanket up to cover her face. The shame was palpable. Thomas walked into the room. He ignored the smell. He ignored the dirt. He sat on the edge of the mattress. Sophia, he said, taking her hand. It was cold and dry like parchment. Why didn't you tell me? Mrs. Victoria said. Sophia coughed, a dry, rattling sound. She said you were busy. She said not to bother you. She said if we complained, you would throw us out on the street. Thomas closed his eyes. Victoria, his wife. He looked around the room. He saw the empty medicine bottles. Cheap painkillers. Not the physical therapy or the specialists he had authorized payment for. I signed checks, Thomas said, his voice rising. Every month. $5,000 for medical expenses. Where did it go? Sophia looked confused. We never saw any money, sir. Mrs. Thorne brings us aspirin sometimes. And bread. Thomas turned to Mrs. Thorne, who was hovering in the hallway, looking like she wanted to disappear into the wall. Agatha, Thomas said softly. Where is the money? I don't handle the accounts, sir, Mrs. Thorne stammered. Mrs. Sterling, Victoria. She manages the household budget. I just follow orders. Orders to starve a woman in my basement. Thomas roared. He stood up, knocking a plastic chair over. Orders to let a child eat off the floor. She said they were leeches. Mrs. Thorne cried. She said cut costs. She said you didn't care. Thomas looked at Lucy. She was feeding her mother a piece of the dirty chicken. Put that down, Thomas said gently. Lucy froze. But she's hungry. I know, Thomas said. He took his phone out. I'm calling an ambulance. A real one. From the private hospital. No! Sophia cried, trying to sit up. We can't afford it. You aren't paying for it, Thomas said. I am, and then I'm going to have a very long conversation with my wife. The contrast between the check writer and the caregiver is stark here. Thomas thought throwing money at the problem solved it. He learned the hard way that you have to follow the money. Sophia's shame broke my heart. She is apologizing for being a victim. If you want to hug Sophia, type Sophia in the comments. The ambulance arrived in 10 minutes. No sirens, just silent, efficient speed. 2 paramedics in crisp uniforms came down the stairs with a stretcher. They looked at the room, then at Thomas, then at Sophia. They didn't ask questions. They knew who signed their paychecks. Careful with her leg, Thomas instructed as they lifted Sophia. She's in pain. We've got her, Mr. Sterling, the lead paramedic said. They carried her up the stairs. Lucy followed, clutching her mother's hand at the top of the stairs. In the main hallway, they ran into Victoria. She had just come home from a gala. She was wearing a silver gown that glittered under the chandelier. She looked like an ice queen. She stopped when she saw the parade. The dirty stretcher. The paramedics. The husband she thought was in London. Thomas? She gasped. What on earth is going on? Thomas stopped. He looked at his wife. Really looked at her. He saw the diamonds on her neck. He saw the $2,000 shoes. We're going to the hospital, Thomas said. Who? Victoria looked at the stretcher. She crinkled her nose. Is that the maid? Good God, Thomas, why is she in the front hall? Use the service entrance. The silence was absolute. Lucy looked at Victoria with pure hatred. Thomas walked up to his wife. He stood toe-to-toe with her. She is in the front hall, Thomas said, because she is a human being. Which is more than I can say for you right now. Victoria's mouth dropped open. Excuse me. I am your wife. We'll talk about that later, Thomas said. Right now, I suggest you go to your room. And stay there. And Victoria? What? Don't touch the accounts. I've frozen them. He walked past her. Following the stretcher out into the rain. Victoria stood there, glittering and alone. As Mrs. Thorne quietly slipped away into the shadows. Use the service entrance. That line tells you everything you need to know about Victoria. She is completely detached from humanity. But Thomas freezing the accounts? That is the modern-day equivalent of locking her in the tower. The king has made his move. Checkmate is coming. The private wing of St. Jude's Hospital was quiet, smelling of antiseptic and expensive lily. It was a stark contrast to the damp basement Thomas had just left. It was 2 a.m. Thomas sat in the waiting room. He had changed out of his wet trench coat, but he was still wearing his cream-colored suit trousers and a white shirt, now rumpled and stained with basement dust. He refused to go home. Dr. Evans, a trauma specialist and an old friend of Thomas, walked out of room 304. He looked grim. Thomas, Dr. Evans said, sitting down heavily next to him. We need to talk. Is she going to walk again? Thomas asked, staring at his hands. Walk? Dr. Evans scoffed. Thomas, she's lucky she's breathing. She has severe malnutrition. Her body mass index is critical. And the leg? The femur fracture from 6 months ago never healed properly. It's a non-union. The bone is necrotizing. Thomas felt the blood drain from his face. Necrotizing? You mean dying? Yes. She's been in agony for months. Without pain medication. It's barbaric. And the girl, Lucy? What about her? She's anemic. Her growth is stunted. She has ulcers from stress and lack of food. Thomas, I have to ask. These people lived in your house. How did this happen? The question hung in the air like a guillotine blade. How did this happen? Because he was busy. Because he signed checks and looked away. Because he trusted a woman who wore red silk and smiled with shark teeth. I didn't know, Thomas whispered. It was the truth, but it felt like a lie. Negligence was a choice. I have to report this, Dr. Evans said gently. Adult Protective Services. Child Protective Services. It's the law. Do it, Thomas said. Report everything. Document every bruise. Every scar. I want a paper trail so long it wraps around my wife's neck. He stood up and walked to the door of room 304. Inside, Sophia was sleeping, hooked up to IVs. Lucy was sitting in a chair next to the bed, holding her mother's hand. She was asleep too, her head resting on the mattress. Thomas watched them. He saw Lucy's shoes, cheap canvas sneakers with holes in the toes. He saw the way she held her mother's hand even in sleep, a fierce protector in a size 0 body. He took out his phone. He called his bank. This is Thomas Sterling. Authorization code Alpha 9 Zulu. Freeze all joint accounts. Cancel the credit cards ending in 4,590 and 8,821. Yes, my wife's cards. Effective immediately. He hung up. The war had begun. The medical report turns neglect into torture. Hearing the details, bone necrotizing, makes the viewer sick and turns Thomas's guilt into fuel. He isn't just sad anymore. He is weaponized. If you are ready to see Thomas use his power for good, hit that like button. Thomas left the hospital at 4 a.m., leaving strict instructions with his private security detail to guard Sophia's room. He drove back to the Sterling estate. The rain had stopped, leaving the world slick and black. When he entered the house, it was silent. Victoria was likely asleep in the master suite, dreaming of galas and diamonds. Mrs. Thorne was hiding in her quarters. Thomas didn't go to bed. He went to his study. He turned on his computer. The screen's blue light illuminated his face, making him look like a statue carved from marble. He opened the household accounts folder. It was a labyrinth. Victoria was smart, he gave her that. She had created sub-accounts labeled maintenance, staff medical, charity. He clicked on Staff Medical Sofia Ramirez. January. $5,000 paid. February. $5,000 paid. March. $5,000 paid. The checks were digital. He clicked on the image of the February check. Pay to the order of Horizon Medical Services. Thomas frowned. He didn't recognize that vendor. He opened a new tab and searched for Horizon Medical Services. Nothing. No website. No address. He dug deeper. He traced the routing number on the check. It led to a shell account in the Cayman Islands. An account linked to a holding company called VS Luxury LLC. Victoria Sterling. She had been writing checks to a fake medical company, depositing the money into her own offshore account, and letting Sofia rot in the basement with nothing but aspirin. Thomas felt a wave of nausea. It wasn't just negligence. It was embezzlement. It was fraud. It was systematic torture for profit. He kept digging. Pantry expenses. $8,000 a month. Staff food allowance. $3,000 a month. He remembered Lucy stealing leftovers. He remembered Mrs. Thorne saying, "We have a budget." Victoria was starving them to buy Hermes bags. Thomas printed everything. The stack of paper grew higher and higher as the sun began to rise. At 6:30 a.m., he heard stirring upstairs. The house was waking up. Thomas stood up. He picked up the stack of papers. He walked to the kitchen. He put the kettle on. He made coffee. He waited. The paper trail scene is crucial. It moves the story from a domestic drama to a financial thriller. We see the mechanics of the evil. Victoria didn't just hate them. She monetized their suffering. That is a special kind of psychopath. If you've ever discovered a lie by checking the receipts, type receipts in the comments. At 8 a.m., Victoria entered the kitchen. She was dressed for battle. She wore a tailored bright red dress that clung to her curves, gold earrings, and full makeup. She looked like she was going to a photo shoot. Not breakfast. She stopped when she saw Thomas. He was sitting at the island, wearing his cream-colored suit jacket now. Freshly pressed, he had a spare in the office. He was drinking coffee from a delicate china cup. The stack of papers sat next to him. "Thomas," Victoria said, her voice smooth as silk. "I didn't hear you come in. Did you sleep in the study?" "I didn't sleep," Thomas said. He didn't look at her. He looked at the steam rising from his cup. "Oh?" Victoria walked to the coffee machine. "Working hard?" "You always do. That's why we have this beautiful life. Do we?" Thomas asked. "Have a beautiful life?" Victoria paused. She sensed the trap. She turned around, leaning against the counter. "Of course we do. Why are you acting so strange? Is it about last night? The maid?" "Her name is Sofia," Thomas said. "Right, Sofia. Look, Thomas, I know it looked bad, but you have to understand. She was difficult. She refused treatment. She wanted to stay in the basement. She said the light hurt her eyes." Thomas laughed. A dry, humorless sound. "The light hurt her eyes? Is that why you blocked the windows?" "She's superstitious." Victoria waved a hand. "You know how those people are." Thomas slammed his hand on the marble counter. The china cup jumped. "Those people?" Thomas stood up. He picked up the stack of papers. "You mean the people whose medical funds you stole to buy that dress?" Victoria froze. Her eyes flicked to the papers. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Horizon Medical Services," Thomas read from the top page. "A shell company. Registered to you. You stole $60,000 in 6 months. Money meant for a woman with a broken spine." Victoria's face went pale, making the red dress look like a wound. "You audited me?" She whispered. "I am your wife." "You are a thief," Thomas said. "And a liar. And possibly a murderer." "Murderer?" Victoria gasped. "She's alive." "Barely," Thomas said. "And if she had died down there?" "What was the plan, Victoria? Bury her in the garden? Put Lucy in an orphanage?" Victoria straightened her spine. The mask slipped. The cool socialite vanished, replaced by a cornered animal. They are parasites, Thomas. She screamed. They live in our house, eat our food, and give nothing back. Why should I spend our money on a clumsy maid who fell down the stairs? Our money? Thomas walked around the island. He stood inches from her. I made the money. You just spend it. And as of 2 a.m. this morning, you don't have a penny. Victoria's eyes widened. What did you do? I froze the accounts. Your cards are dead. Your assets are locked. Victoria lunged at him. She actually tried to scratch his face. Thomas caught her wrist. He held it firmly, not hurting her, but stopping her cold. Don't, he warned. You've done enough damage. He let her go. She stumbled back, panting. Get out of my kitchen, Thomas said. Go upstairs. Pack a bag. Because the police are coming. The confrontation. The visual contrast of the red dress, passion, evil versus the cream suit, calm justice, is visually striking. Victoria revealing her true colors. They are parasites. Confirms everything Thomas suspected. He didn't just divorce her. He defanged her. If you love the get out of my kitchen line, share this video. Victoria fled the kitchen, her heels clicking frantically as she ran upstairs. Thomas stayed. He poured another cup of coffee. His hand was shaking slightly. The back door opened. Mrs. Thorne crept in. She was carrying a suitcase. She wasn't wearing her uniform. She was wearing a trench coat and a hat, looking like a spy from a bad movie. She saw Thomas and froze. Going somewhere, Agatha? Thomas asked, taking a sip. Mrs. Thorne dropped the suitcase. Mr. Sterling. I was just running away. Thomas finished. Leaving the sinking ship? I had nothing to do with it. Mrs. Thorne cried, rushing forward. She fell to her knees just like she had forced Lucy to do the night before. It was her, Victoria. She made me do it. She threatened to fire me. So you starved a child? Thomas asked. Because you were afraid of losing your job? I snuck them food when I could. Mrs. Thorne lied. I gave them bread. I saw the bread, Thomas said. It was moldy. Lucy told me. Mrs. Thorne grabbed the hem of his trousers. Please, sir. I've worked here for 10 years. I have nowhere to go. Thomas looked down at her. He felt no pity. Only disgust. You had a choice, Thomas said. Every day for 6 months you walked down those stairs. You saw Sophia in pain. You saw Lucy getting thinner. And every day you chose silence. You chose your paycheck over their lives? He pulled his leg away from her grip. You are fired, Agatha. Without severance. Without a reference. And if you ever come near my family again, I will have you arrested for complicity. But sir! Leave. Thomas pointed to the door. Before I change my mind and call the cops on you too. Mrs. Thorne scrambled up. She grabbed her suitcase and ran out into the rain, a rat fleeing the light. Thomas watched her go. One down. One to go. The accomplice is just as guilty as the villain. Mrs. Thorne represents the people who look away. Thomas rejecting her excuses is a powerful moral stance. You chose your paycheck over their lives. It's a lesson in integrity. Do you agree with Thomas firing her? With the house empty of staff, Thomas walked through the silent rooms. He felt like a stranger in his own museum. He went to the master bedroom. The door was locked. Victoria was inside. He didn't bother knocking. He went to the guest room. He sat on the bed and opened his laptop. He had one more thing to check. The security system. Victoria thought she was smart. She had deleted the footage from the cloud. But Thomas owned the server company. He had a backup. He logged into the archive. Date, May 12th. The day of the accident. He found the file. Camera 04, grand staircase. He clicked play. Grainy footage. It showed Sophia polishing the banister. She was humming, wiping the wood. Then Victoria appeared at the top of the stairs. She was holding a bottle of massage oil from the spa. Thomas watched, horrified, as his wife poured the oil onto the top 3 steps. She smiled. She wiped the bottle with her dress and put it in her pocket. Then she called out, "Sophia, come here, I need you." Sophia looked up. She started to climb the stairs. 1 step. 2 steps. On the 3rd step, her foot hit the oil. She slipped. Her arms flailed. She fell backward. Crash, crash, crash. She tumbled all the way down, landing in a heap at the bottom. Victoria stood at the top, watching. She didn't run down. She didn't call 911 immediately. She waited. She watched Sophia twitch in pain. She finished her SMOO to HIE. Then she picked up the phone. Thomas closed the laptop. He felt sick. He ran to the bathroom and threw up. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't negligence. It was attempted murder. Victoria hadn't just ignored them. She had tried to kill Sophia. Why? Because Sophia knew something. Or just because she hated her? Thomas washed his face. He looked in the mirror. The tired businessman was gone. In his place was an avenging angel. He walked out of the bathroom. He picked up his phone. "Detective Miller? This is Thomas Sterling. I have evidence of a crime. A violent crime. Bring a squad car. And bring handcuffs." The plot twist. It wasn't just a slip. It was a trap. This changes everything. Victoria isn't just a thief. She is a predator. The detail of her finishing the smoothie while Sophia lay in pain creates a visceral reaction in the viewer. We need to see her arrested now. If you are screaming at the screen, you are ready for part 3. 30 minutes later. The sirens wailed, piercing the quiet morning of the Sterling estate. Thomas stood at the bottom of the grand staircase, the same stairs where Sophia had fallen. Victoria came out of the bedroom. She had packed 3 Louis Vuitton suitcases. She was dragging them to the landing. She saw the police entering the foyer. "Thomas?" She screamed. "What did you do?" "I watched the tape, Victoria," Thomas said calmly. Victoria froze. "What tape?" "The backup. May 12th. The oil." Her face crumbled. The arrogance evaporated. She dropped the suitcase handle. It slid down the stairs, bumping loudly. Thump, thump, thump. It was a prank. Victoria stammered. "I didn't mean for her to break her back. I just wanted her to slip. To embarrass her." "You watched her suffer," Thomas said. "For 10 minutes before you called help. That's depraved indifference. That's assault." The officers ran up the stairs. "Victoria Sterling, you are under arrest." They cuffed her. Her red dress contrasted sharply with the silver handcuffs. "Thomas, help me. Call your lawyer," she begged as they dragged her down. "My lawyer represents me," Thomas said. "Not you. You're on your own." She was led out the front door, screaming obscenities. The neighbors were watching. The paparazzi had arrived. Thomas had tipped them off. Flashbulbs popped. The Ice Queen was melted. Thomas stood in the doorway, watching the police car drive away. The house was empty now. Truly empty. But for the first time in years, it felt clean. The visual of the Louis Vuitton suitcase falling down the stairs mirrors Sophia's fall. A poetic justice. Victoria losing her dignity in front of the cameras is the perfect punishment for someone so obsessed with image. The house is clean now. Thomas is free. But now he has to rebuild. The flashing lights of the police cars faded into the distance, taking Victoria Sterling and her red dress away. The paparazzi dispersed, leaving only tire tracks on the wet driveway. Thomas stood in the foyer of his mansion. It was 11 a.m. But the house felt like it was trapped in eternal midnight. The silence was different now. Before, it was the silence of secrets. Now it was the silence of emptiness. He walked into the kitchen. The mashed potatoes were still smeared on the floor where Lucy had dropped them. The chicken carcass was still under the island. He stared at the mess. Thomas Sterling, who hadn't washed a dish in 30 years, rolled up the sleeves of his cream-colored suit. He found a rag. He found a bucket. He knelt down. He scrubbed the floor. Scrub. Scrub. He scrubbed until the black marble shone. He scrubbed until his knuckles were raw. He scrubbed until he was crying hot, silent tears that dripped onto the floor, mixing with the soap. "I'm sorry," he whispered to the empty room. "I'm so sorry." He realized then that he couldn't just hire new staff. He couldn't just write a check. He had to clean the mess himself. He had to purify the house of Victoria's poison. He spent the next 3 hours going room by room. He went to the basement. He packed up Sophia's meager belongings, a few photos, a rosary, a worn Bible. He put them in a Louis Vuitton bag. He emptied of Victoria's shoes. He went to the pantry. He threw away the lock Victoria had installed. He took a hammer and smashed it. Clang, clang. The metal twisted and broke. "No more locks," Thomas vowed. "Never again." He sat on the kitchen floor, surrounded by the debris of his old life, and for the first time in years, he felt something real. He felt shame. And shame, he realized, was the first step toward redemption. Watching a billionaire scrub floors is a powerful image. It symbolizes his willingness to get his hands dirty to fix his mistakes. Thomas is stripping away his ego. If you respect a man who cleans up his own mess, hit that like button. St. Jude's Hospital. Room 304. 2 days later, Thomas walked in carrying a massive bouquet of sunflowers. He remembered Sophia saying once that roses were too serious, but sunflowers were happy. Sophia was awake. She was sitting up slightly, propped by pillows. Her face was still pale, but the gray cast of death was gone. She was clean. Her hair was brushed. Lucy was sitting in the chair next to the bed. She was wearing a new outfit Thomas had ordered, a bright Saks blue dress and a matching cardigan. It was a little big on her, but the color made her skin glow. When Thomas entered, Lucy jumped up. She stood between him and the bed, arms crossed. A tiny bodyguard in blue. "Mr. Sterling," Sophia whispered. Her voice was weak, raspy. "Please. You shouldn't be here. You have done too much." "I haven't done enough," Thomas said, placing the flowers on the table. He didn't sit in the chair. He stood at the foot of the bed, like a soldier reporting for duty. "How is the pain?" Thomas asked. "Better," Sophia smiled weakly. "The doctors. They gave me medicine. Real medicine. The fire in my leg is gone." "Good. And the surgery?" "Tomorrow," Lucy answered for her mother. Her eyes were sharp, scanning Thomas for any sign of deception. "Dr. Evans says they have to put a metal rod in her leg. He says she might walk again. Maybe." "She will walk," Thomas said firmly. "I've flown in a specialist from Switzerland. Dr. Weber. He's the best orthopedic surgeon in the world. He lands tonight." Sophia's eyes filled with tears. "Sir. The cost? We can't." "Stop." Thomas held up a hand. "You worked for me for 5 years, Sophia. You were injured in my house. By my wife. This isn't charity. This is workers' compensation. Plus interest. Plus damages." He looked at Lucy. "And you. You are on payroll now too." Lucy frowned. "Doing what?" "Consultant," Thomas said. "I need someone to tell me what's wrong with my house. You know where the cracks are. You know where the ghosts are." Lucy lowered her arms slightly. "You smashed the lock on the pantry. How did you know?" Thomas asked. "I went back," Lucy admitted, "to get my mom's rosary. I saw the broken lock on the floor. I broke it," Thomas said. "And I fired Mrs. Thorne. And Victoria is in a cell awaiting arraignment." Lucy looked at him. Really looked at him. She saw the dark circles under his eyes. She saw the stain on his cream suit cuff that he hadn't noticed. "You look tired," Lucy said. "I am," Thomas admitted. "Being a decent human being is exhausting. I'm out of practice." Lucy smiled. A tiny, hesitant smile. "My mom makes good coffee. When she gets better, Maybe she can make you some. I would like that, Thomas said. Very much. The consultant job offer is brilliant. It gives Lucy dignity instead of charity. Thomas is empowering her, not just saving her. And Lucy, noticing he is tired, shows her empathy is returning. If you love the new dynamic between Thomas and Lucy, leave for the blue dress. A week later. Sophia was still in the hospital recovering from successful surgery. Thomas brought Lucy back to the Sterling estate. You can stay in the guest wing, Thomas said, opening the door to a suite that was bigger than her entire apartment in the basement. It has a TV, a private bathroom, and a view of the garden. Lucy walked in. She touched the silk sheets. She looked at the fluffy towels. Is this real? She whispered. It's real, Thomas said. Dinner is at 6 o'clock. I hired a new chef. His name is Marco. He makes excellent tacos. Tacos? Lucy's eyes widened. In this house? I requested them, Thomas winked. I hear they are your favorite. That night, Thomas ate dinner with Lucy at the long dining table. It was just the two of them. Lucy ate quickly, ravenously. She ate 3 tacos in 5 minutes. Slow down, Thomas said gently. There is plenty. I know, Lucy said. But she kept looking at the door, expecting Mrs. Thorne to burst in. Later that night, around 11 p.m., Thomas walked past the guest room. The door was slightly ajar. He peeked in. Lucy was asleep. But she wasn't in the bed. She was sleeping on the floor, curled up on the rug. And surrounding her were piles of food. Bread rolls from dinner. Apples from the fruit bowl. Packets of crackers. A bottle of water. She had built a fortress of food around herself. Thomas felt his heart break all over again. The trauma of starvation ran deep. She didn't trust that the food would be there tomorrow. He didn't wake her. He didn't take the food away. Instead, he went to the kitchen. He got a basket. He filled it with granola bars, bags of chips, juice boxes, and chocolate. He tiptoed into the room. He placed the basket gently next to her food fortress. Then he took a blanket from the bed and covered her. You will never be hungry again, he whispered. The next morning, Lucy woke up. She saw the basket. She saw the note Thomas had left on top of a chocolate bar. Inventory for consultant Lucy. Do not touch. T. Sterling. She laughed. A real, loud laugh. She ate the chocolate for breakfast. Hoarding food is a common symptom of food insecurity trauma. Thomas reacting with kindness instead of judgment. Why is there food on my rug? Is a masterclass in empathy. He validated her fear and provided a solution. Have you ever had a safe food comfort? Tell us in the comments. While the house was healing, the lawyers were fighting. Victoria Sterling was out on bail, paid by her parents. She was staying at a hotel, furious and vengeful. Thomas met his lawyer, Mr. Blackwood, in the study. She wants a settlement, Blackwood said, sliding a document across the desk. She says if you proceed with the divorce and the criminal charges, she will release damaging information about Sterling Enterprises. What information? Thomas asked, sipping his coffee. She says she has recordings of you. Business meetings. Confidential deals. Thomas laughed. Let her release them. My business is clean. Boring, but clean. Is that all she has? She's also claiming emotional distress. She says you neglected her. That she was forced to run the household alone and made mistakes under pressure. Mistakes? Thomas stood up. He walked to the window. He saw Lucy in the garden, playing with a new puppy he had bought her. A golden retriever named Hope. She poured oil on the stairs, Thomas said. That wasn't a mistake. That was a trap. She starved a child. That wasn't stress. That was malice. He turned back to Blackwood. Tell her this. I will spend every penny I have to put her in prison. I will hire every prosecutor in the state. I will keep this case in the news for 10 years if I have to. She can have the house in the Hamptons if she pleads guilty. Otherwise, I will destroy her. The Hamptons house. Blackwood raised an eyebrow. That's worth $5 million. It's a small price to pay to keep her away from Lucy and Sophia, Thomas said. But she has to plead guilty. To everything. Attempted murder. Fraud. Child endangerment. I want it on her record forever. She's proud, Blackwood warned. She won't want the felony conviction. Then she goes to trial, Thomas said. And I will testify. And Lucy will testify. And we will play the tapes. 2 days later, Victoria accepted the deal. She pleaded guilty to lesser charges to avoid a 20-year sentence. She got 5 years in a minimum security prison in the Hamptons house, which Thomas had stripped of all furniture and assets beforehand. Thomas signed the papers. He felt lighter. He walked out to the garden. Lucy, he called out. Lucy looked up from the puppy. She was wearing her blue dress, muddy at the knees. Did you win? She asked. We won, Thomas smiled. The dragon is in the dungeon. Thomas is playing 4D chess. Giving her the house seems like a loss, but it ensures a guilty plea, which protects the victims from a long traumatic trial. He chose peace over property. The dragon is in the dungeon is a callback to the fairy tales Lucy reads. Are you happy with this outcome? 3 months later, the front door of the Sterling estate opened. Thomas stood there, holding the door. A sleek black wheelchair rolled in. Sophia sat in it. She looked different, healthier. Her cheeks had color. Her leg was in a brace, but she could move it. Welcome home, Thomas said. Sophia looked around the foyer. The same foyer where she had scrubbed floors. The same foyer where Victoria had sneered at her. It looks different, Sophia said. We redecorated, Thomas said. He pushed her wheelchair into the living room. Gone were the cold white sofas. Gone were the sharp glass tables. In their place were warm velvet couches. Soft rugs, plants everywhere. And in the corner a special lift chair for Sophia. And look, Lucy said, running to the windows. No more heavy curtains. Dad took them down. Dad? Sophia looked at Thomas. Surprised. Thomas blushed. She, started calling me that last week. We're working on it. Sophia smiled. Tears welled up in her eyes. Thank you, Mr. Sterling. Thomas, he corrected. Please. We are family now. He knelt beside her chair. Sophia, I have a proposition for you. I can't work yet, sir. Sophia worried. My leg. I don't want you to be the maid, Thomas said. I hired a cleaning service for that. I want you to be the house manager. You run the staff. You make the menus. You tell me when I'm working too hard. And, he paused. And you teach me how to make that coffee. The one with the cinnamon. Sophia laughed. A rich, warm sound that filled the room. I can do that, she said. Dad. That one word signifies the complete transformation of their relationship. Thomas didn't just save them. He adopted them in spirit. And promoting Sophia to house manager restores her dignity. She's no longer a servant. She is the boss. If you are crying happy tears, hit like. Life settled into a rhythm. Thomas still went to the office, but he came home at 5 p.m. every day. No exceptions, he told his board of directors. I have a dinner date. Dinner was sacred. They ate together. Sophia, now walking with a cane. Lucy and Thomas. They talked about school. Lucy was top of her class in math. They talked about the garden. Sophia was planting roses, real ones. Not the thorny ones Victoria liked. One rainy Tuesday night. The anniversary of the night Thomas found Lucy in the kitchen. They were sitting in the library. The storm was raging outside. Thunder shook the windows. Lucy went quiet. She stopped reading her book. She curled up in the armchair, pulling her knees to her chest. Lucy? Thomas asked. It's raining, she whispered. Like that night. Thomas put down his book. He walked over to her. It is raining, he agreed. But look around. Lucy looked. Is the refrigerator locked? Thomas asked. No. Is Mrs. Thorne here? No. Are you hungry? No. Are you safe? Lucy looked at Thomas. She looked at her mom, who was knitting by the fire. Yes, she whispered. Then let it rain, Thomas said. The storm is outside. We are in here. He went to the record player. He put on a jazz record. Soft, smooth trumpet notes filled the room, drowning out the thunder. Lucy uncurled her legs. She picked up her book. Read to me, Dad, she said. Chapter 1, Thomas began. In a hole in the ground there lived a hobbit. PTSD triggers don't vanish, but having a support system makes them manageable. Thomas acknowledges the fear. Let it rain, but reframes the reality. We are safe. Reading The Hobbit, a story about a small person going on a big adventure, is a perfect metaphor for Lucy. This is true healing. 6 months later. The Sterling annual charity gala. In the past, Victoria had organized it. It was a cold, exclusive event where people showed off diamonds. This year, Thomas organized it. We are changing the theme, Thomas announced. No black tie. No caviar. What is the theme? His assistant asked, horrified. Second chances, Thomas said. The ballroom was decorated with sunflowers. The food was tacos and empanadas, made by Marco and Sophia. The guest list included the city's elite, but also the staff, the nurses from St. Jude's, and local families. Thomas stood on the stage. He wore his cream suit. Welcome, he said into the microphone. For years I used this room to impress people I didn't like. Tonight, I want to impress the people I love. He gestured to the side of the stage. Sophia walked out. She was wearing a beautiful emerald green dress. She walked with a cane, but her head was held high. Lucy walked out next. She was wearing a sparkling Saks blue gown that looked like a princess dress. The crowd applauded. This is Sophia, Thomas introduced them. And Lucy. They taught me that wealth isn't what you have in the bank. It's who you have at the table. He looked at Lucy. Lucy, would you do the honors? Lucy walked to the microphone. She was nervous. Her hands shook. But then she looked at Thomas. He nodded. You got this. My name is Lucy, she said, her voice clear and strong. And I used to be invisible. But then, someone opened the door. She looked at the crowd. Please, she said. Look around you. Look at the people who serve your food. Look at the people who clean your floors. See them, because they might be the best part of your life. There wasn't a dry eye in the house. Thomas walked over and hugged her. I'm proud of you, he whispered. I'm proud of us, she whispered back. The gala is the public declaration of their new life. Thomas isn't hiding them. He is celebrating them. Lucy's speech, look at the people who clean your floors, is the moral of the entire story. It challenges the audience to be better. If this speech moved you, share this video with someone who needs to hear it. 5 years passed. The Sterling estate was no longer a silent mausoleum. It was a home filled with the chaotic energy of a teenager. Lucy was 17. She had traded her oversized t-shirts for vintage sweaters and combat boots. She was brilliant, fierce, and loud. One Tuesday evening, Thomas sat in his study. He wasn't working. He was staring at a report card. Straight A's, he murmured. Except for physics? Lucy marched in. She was wearing her signature bright blue hoodie, a nod to the old dress. She plopped down on the leather sofa. Don't start, Dad, she groaned. Mr. Henderson hates me. He says I ask too many questions. Questions are good, Thomas said, taking off his reading glasses. Questions mean you're thinking. Did you challenge his theory on thermodynamics again? Maybe. Lucy grinned. He said heat rises. I said hot air rises, but heat radiates. He gave me a detention. Thomas laughed. I'll frame it. Your first detention. A Sterling tradition. He looked at her. Really looked at her. The malnourished girl who stole chicken was gone. In her place was a young woman who wasn't afraid to speak her mind. Prom is coming up, Thomas said casually. Lucy rolled her eyes. I'm not going. It's stupid. Everyone wears polyester dresses and drinks spiked punch. I see. Thomas nodded. So, if a certain young man named Leo asked you... Lucy turned bright red. How do you know about Leo? I have eyes, Thomas said. And Sophia tells me everything. Mom! Lucy shouted toward the hallway. You traitor! Sophia walked in. She was using a cane, but she moved with grace. She was wearing a crisp white blouse and emerald trousers. She looked like the CEO of the house, which she effectively was. I am not a traitor, Sophia said, kissing Lucy's forehead. I am an informant. And Leo is a nice boy. He holds the door open. He's okay, Lucy muttered. I'll make a deal with you, Thomas said. You go to prom. I'll buy the dress. Any dress you want. No polyester. Lucy sighed. Fine, but I'm wearing combat boots. Deal. Thomas shook her hand. Seeing Thomas navigate teenage drama is heartwarming. It shows how far they've come from the starving girl dynamic. He isn't just a savior anymore. He's a dad dealing with grades and boys. The banter is natural and builds character depth. If you love this father-daughter dynamic, drop a for Lucy. The night of prom arrived. Thomas stood at the bottom of the grand staircase. The same staircase where Sophia had fallen years ago. The same staircase that used to be a place of trauma. Now, it was a runway. Lucy appeared at the top. She wasn't wearing combat boots. She was wearing a floor-length gown of iridescent blue silk. It shimmered like water. Her hair was up in elegant curls. She looked like royalty. Thomas felt his throat tighten. He remembered the little girl in the gray rags. Sophia stood beside him, wiping tears. She looks like an angel, she whispered. Lucy walked down. Step. Step. Confident. Strong. She reached the bottom. Well? She asked, twirling. Do I look like a sterling? No, Thomas said, his voice thick with emotion. You look like a Ramirez. You look like your mother. Lucy smiled. She hugged him. Thanks, Dad. The doorbell rang. Leo was there. He was a lanky boy in an ill-fitting tuxedo, holding a corsage that was slightly crushed. Thomas opened the door. He loomed over the boy. Good evening, sir, Leo squeaked. Leo, Thomas said, extending a hand. 2 rules. 1. Have her back by midnight. 2. If you make her cry, I have a very expensive team of lawyers and a lot of empty land in the Hamptons. Dad. Lucy groaned, pushing past him. Ignore him, Leo. He thinks he's the godfather. I heard that. Thomas called out as they walked to Leo's beat-up Honda Civic. He watched them drive away. He felt a pang of emptiness. She was growing up. She was leaving the nest. Sophia put a hand on his arm. She will always come back, Thomas. You gave her roots. Now she needs wings. I hate wings, Thomas grumbled, but he was smiling. The protective dad trope is classic but effective here. It contrasts sharply with the earlier scenes where she had no protection. Thomas threatening the date is his way of saying, I cherish her. It's a sweet, funny moment that deepens the bond. Are you Team Thomas or Team Leo? A year later. The kitchen table was covered in envelopes. Harvard, Yale, Stanford, Columbia. Lucy had applied to all of them. Open the big one, Thomas said. Pointing to the thick envelope from Stanford, Lucy's hands shook. What if it's a rejection? What if they made a mistake? Open it, Sophia encouraged. You worked hard for this. Lucy ripped it open. She read the first line. Congratulations. I got in. She screamed. Stanford. Engineering. Thomas jumped up and hugged her. I knew it. My brilliant girl. Then the reality hit him. Stanford? Thomas asked. That's in California. Yeah, Lucy beamed. Silicon Valley. It's where the future is. California is far, Thomas said. His smile faltered. That's 3,000 miles away. It's just a flight, Dad, Lucy said. You have a jet. I sold the jet, Thomas reminded her. To fund the scholarship program. Oh, right. Lucy looked at him. Are you okay? I'm fine, Thomas lied. I'm thrilled. California. Great weather. Earthquakes. Perfect. That night, Thomas couldn't sleep. He wandered the house. He went to Lucy's room. It was filled with boxes. She was packing. He sat on the edge of her bed. He looked at the photo on her nightstand. It was the three of them, Thomas, Sophia, and Lucy, at the charity gala. He realized that his job was done. He had taken a broken bird, healed its wings, and now he had to let it fly. It was the hardest thing he had ever done. Harder than fighting Victoria. Harder than scrubbing the floor. Empty nest syndrome hits hard, especially after such a traumatic bonding experience. Thomas's reluctance is palpable. He sacrificed his luxury, the jet, for her future, and now that future is taking her away. It's bittersweet. If you've ever had to say goodbye to a child, leave a in the comments. Lucy left for Stanford in August. The house felt huge and quiet again, but it wasn't the empty silence of before. It was a peaceful silence. Thomas and Sophia fell into a new routine. They were partners, friends, maybe something more. Though neither said it out loud. One evening, Thomas found Sophia in the library. She was looking at blueprints. What are you plotting? Thomas asked, pouring 2 cups of tea. The basement, Sophia said. I was thinking, we don't use it. It's just storage and bad memories, Thomas added. Exactly. So let's change the memory, Sophia said. Let's turn it into a wine cellar? Or a home theater? No, Thomas said. He looked at the blueprints. Let's turn it into a shelter. A shelter? For women, Thomas said. Women like you. Who have nowhere to go. Who are hurt. Who are hiding. Sophia looked at him. Her eyes shone. We have the space, Thomas continued. We have the money. We can convert the servants' quarters into safe apartments. We can give them legal aid. Medical care. A fresh start. The Sterling Sanctuary, Sophia whispered. No, Thomas corrected. The Sophia House. Sophia started to cry. She reached out and took his hand. You are a good man, Thomas Sterling. I'm trying, he said. Every day, I'm trying. They spent the next year building it. Contractors came and went. The damp, dark basement was transformed. New windows were cut to let in light. The walls were painted warm yellow. When it opened, the first resident was a young woman named Maria. She had a broken arm and a terrified daughter. Thomas met them at the door. Welcome, he said. You are safe here. He saw the little girl looking at the refrigerator. Are you hungry? Thomas asked. Yes, she whispered. Come with me, Thomas said. We have tacos. Turning the site of trauma into a site of healing is powerful. The Sophia House is the ultimate legacy. It closes the loop. Thomas is doing for others what he did for Lucy and offering tacos to the new child. Perfect callback. Healing is cyclical. If you love this idea, hit like. 6 years later, the garden of the Sterling estate was in full bloom. It was June. Lucy was 24. She had graduated from Stanford with honors. She was an engineer now, designing affordable housing, and she was getting married. Not to Leo, that ended freshman year, but to a man named David, a doctor she met volunteering at a clinic. Thomas stood in the dressing room. He was adjusting his tie. His hands were older now, spotted with age. His hair was completely white. Lucy walked in. She was wearing a simple, elegant white dress. No frills. Just clean lines and silk. You look... Thomas choked up. You look like yourself. That's the goal. Lucy smiled. She fixed his tie. You okay, Dad? I'm fine. Thomas sniffled. It's just allergies, right? Allergies. They walked out to the garden. Sophia was sitting in the front row. She was older too. Her hair gray, but her face was unlined by stress. She was holding hands with a man, Mr. Henderson, the old physics teacher. A funny twist of fate. Thomas walked Lucy down the aisle. The grass was soft under their feet. He looked at the guests. He saw the women from the Sophia house. He saw the staff. He saw his old business partners. He realized that his life was full. Not of money, but of people. When they reached the altar, Thomas kissed Lucy's cheek. "He's a lucky man," Thomas whispered. "If he hurts you." I know, Lucy laughed. "You have lawyers and land in the Hamptons." "Actually," Thomas smiled, "I sold the Hamptons land. I have a shovel and a very secluded garden." Lucy laughed loud enough to startle the priest. Thomas sat down next to Sophia. She squeezed his hand. "We did good," she whispered. "We did," Thomas agreed. "A wedding is the classic happy ending, but the details make it special." Thomas's joke about the shovel shows his dark humor is still there. Seeing Sophia happy with a partner is a nice touch. She deserves love too. The circle of life continues. 10 more years passed. Thomas was 80. He moved slower now. He used a cane, just like Sophia used to. He spent his days on the porch, watching the sun move across the sky. One afternoon, a car pulled up. A sleek electric SUV. Lucy got out. She had a child with her. A little boy, 5 years old. "Grandpa!" the boy shouted, running up the steps. "Easy, Tiger," Thomas laughed, catching him. "I'm fragile." "Mom said you used to be a giant," the boy said, looking up at him. "I was," Thomas said. "A giant grump." Lucy walked up. She looked tired. She was balancing a career and motherhood. "Hi, Dad." She kissed his cheek. "How are you?" "I'm old," Thomas said. "But I'm here." They sat on the porch. Sophia brought out lemonade. "I have something for you," Thomas said to Lucy. He pulled a small velvet box from his pocket. Lucy opened it. It wasn't jewelry. It was a key. An old iron key. "What is this?" Lucy asked. "It's the key to the pantry," Thomas said. "The one I smashed." Lucy looked at him, confused. "I kept the pieces," Thomas explained. "I had them melted down and forged into this key. It doesn't open anything in this house." "Then what is it for?" "It opens the future," Thomas said. "It's a reminder that you hold the key. No one can ever lock you out again. You are the master of your own house, your own life." Lucy closed her hand around the key. It was warm from his pocket. "Thank you, Dad." She looked at her son, playing in the garden. He was chasing a butterfly near the roses. "He's never known hunger," Lucy said softly. "He's never known fear." "That," Thomas said, leaning back in his chair, "is the only return on investment I ever cared about." The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold and purple. The wind chimes sang their evening song. Thomas closed his eyes. He listened to the laughter of his grandson. He felt the warmth of his daughter's hand. He smelled the lavender Sophia had planted. He was at peace. The long, dark night was over. The morning had come and it was beautiful. The end, and that is the story of Thomas, Sophia, and Lucy. From a stolen chicken carcass to a legacy of love. It teaches us that it is never too late to change. Never too late to open your eyes. Never too late to be the hero of your own story. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe to our channel. Share this video with someone who needs a reminder that light always wins.